There comes a time in every person's life when they face a moment of absolute truth, when the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the fear of change. For Tony Robbins, that moment came early. It didn't arrive in a stadium filled with thousands chanting his name, nor did it come when he was speaking on stage beside world leaders. It came when he was broke, overweight, and alone in a small apartment, unsure if his dreams would ever become reality. It came when the world gave him every reason to give up, but he made a decision that would change everything. He didn't wait for the world to hand him success. He rewired his mind to demand that Tony Robbins wasn't born with power. He created it, not through luck or magic or connections, but through pain, persistence, and mental discipline. His mother was abusive. His family was poor. At 17, he was washing dishes and living in a 400 square foot apartment with nothing but a dream in his head and desperation in his gut. Most people would have folded under that pressure. But Tony didn't. He did something most people never do. He stopped blaming and started building. He stopped waiting and started moving. He chose to reprogram the beliefs that held him back and plant new ones that pulled him forward. That's what rewiring the mind is. It's not positive thinking. It's powerful action. You see, your life is controlled by your beliefs. What you believe about yourself, about the world, about what's possible. It becomes your prison or your power. Tony realized that if he didn't change his thoughts, his life would never change. So he studied human behavior obsessively. He read hundreds of books. He listened to every personal development tape he could find. He found mentors, not in person, but in voices and pages and stories. He immersed himself in the psychology of transformation. Not because it was trendy, but because his life depended on it. He wasn't just learning, he was surviving. But here's the truth, knowledge alone doesn't change your life. It's what you do with it. And Tony Robbins didn't just consume information, he applied it ruthlessly. He trained his body as hard as his mind. He turned pain into fuel. He began to ask better questions. Why me? But what can I learn from this? Not what's missing, but what's possible. That shift from victim to creator is how he rewired his entire identity. And once you change your identity, your life begins to follow. What most people don't understand is that success is not about resources. It's about resourcefulness. Tony didn't have money. He didn't have connections. What he had was hunger. Hunger is the greatest advantage in life. Hunger makes you unstoppable. It keeps you up when the world sleeps. It pushes you to grow when everything in you wants to quit. Tony Robbins had hunger. He used that hunger to build momentum, and once you build momentum, nothing can stop you except your own mind. That's why he obsessed over rituals, habits, mental conditioning. He learned that your daily rituals create your destiny. The mind doesn't change in a day. It changes through repetition. Every morning, he practiced gratitude, even when there was nothing to be grateful for. He visualized his future before it existed. He trained his nervous system to feel success before it arrived, and slowly the world began to respond, not because it was easy, but because he became different. The world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are. Tony also understood the power of physiology. Change your body, change your state. If you want to change your life, you have to get out of your head and into your body. He used breathwork, movement, cold water plunges, and priming exercises to put himself in peak states daily. That's not motivation. That's mastery. Most people wait for motivation to show up. Tony built habits so powerful that motivation wasn't needed. He created momentum, and momentum created breakthroughs. Rewiring the mind isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about building the strength to overcome them. Tony Robbins faced real challenges: bankruptcy, betrayals, physical pain, public attacks. But he never let those external events determine his internal world. He learned that suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And you choose suffering by the story you tell yourself about the pain. Tony told himself a different story. He said, life is happening for me, not to me. That one belief changed everything. That's the difference between those who rise and those who fall. Their interpretation. When most people fail, they make it mean something about them being, I'm not good enough. I'm not meant for this. But Tony taught himself and millions more that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every setback is feedback. Every failure is fuel. Every obstacle is the training ground for the next level of your life. And once your mind embraces that truth, no pain can stop you. Tony also knew he needed to control the environment around him. You cannot grow in toxic soil. He cut out negative influences. He distanced himself from people who drained his energy. He surrounded himself with visionaries, mentors, and high vibrational thinkers, because proximity is power. You rise to the standards of those you spend time with. If you want to rewire your life, start by rewiring your circle. Get around people who stretch you, people who believe in growth and contribution and impact. And that brings us to the real fuel behind Tony's transformation contribution. He didn't just grow himself. He grew to serve. The fastest way to escape your suffering is to help someone else through theirs. Contribution rewires the mind faster than any technique. When Tony fed families at Thanksgiving while he was still struggling himself, he activated something deep within purpose. Purpose is the highest form of power. When you know why you're here, pain becomes a teacher, not a tormentor. That's what most people miss. They chase success without understanding that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Tony didn't just want to be rich. He wanted to be impactful. He wanted to change lives. And he knew that to do that, he had to become the strongest version of himself. So he kept going. He kept growing. He turned every breakdown into a breakthrough. He didn't wait for confidence. He built it through courage. He didn't wait for opportunity. He created it through relentless action. And slowly, the world began to reflect what was already true inside him. Audiences grew, influences spread. People began to listen. But even with all the fame, all the money, all the success, Tony never forgot the foundation mindset, identity, rituals, gratitude, growth. He knew that the real victory wasn't on the stage. It was in the decision he made in that small apartment decades ago when no one was watching. That decision was this: I will no longer live as a victim of my past. I will shape my destiny with intention, hunger, and belief. That decision can be yours too. You don't have to be born into greatness. You don't need a perfect past. What you need is the decision to begin rewiring your mind, to begin letting go of the beliefs that hold you back, to begin building the rituals, the routines, the identity that will pull you forward into a life beyond your wildest dreams. And make no mistake, this isn't easy. Rewiring the mind means confronting your pain. It means healing your trauma. It means facing the voice that tells you you're not enough and replying with a roar, watch me. It means being willing to fall, to fail, to be judged, to be doubted, and still keep going. That's not motivation. That's power. Tony Robbins didn't become great because he never felt fear. He became great because he stopped letting fear make decisions for him. He trained his nervous system to walk toward fear instead of away from it. He knew that on the other side of fear is growth. And on the other side of growth is freedom. And that's what this is all about. Freedom. Freedom to live on your terms. Freedom to build your dreams. But freedom to rise from your past. You don't need a miracle. You need a mindset. You don't need more time. You need more courage. You don't need permission. You need a decision. Decide who you want to become and start becoming them today. Tony Robbins is living proof that your mind is your greatest weapon or your greatest weakness. It will either chain you to your limitations or launch you into your destiny. The choice is yours every day, in every moment. You are wiring your brain with thoughts, emotions, actions. The only question, EC, are you wiring it for fear or for freedom? If you take nothing else from Tony's story, take this: pain is not the end. Pain is the beginning. It's the first spark of transformation. If you're struggling right now, if life feels unfair, if you're tired of pretending to be okay, good. That's the ground where legends are born. That's the same ground Tony stood on. The same place where you must make the same decision. I will no longer be a prisoner of my past. I am the author of my future. I will rewire my mind, rewrite my story, and rise, because you can, and because you must, and you can. When you look at the life of Tony Robbins today, the mansions, the private jets, the global seminars, the millions of people he's helped, it's easy to forget that none of it was guaranteed. None of it was handed to him. Every inch was earned. Every level was fought for. He rewired his mind not just once, but daily. Because transformation is not a one-time event. It's a lifestyle, a decision you recommit to every single morning, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. And those are the most important days. The days when your energy is low. The days when your doubts are loud. The days when nothing seems to be working. That's when greatness is forged. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not when the crowd is cheering, but when no one is watching. Tony knew this. He trained himself to show up, no matter what. That's the mindset of a champion. Not waiting for ideal conditions, but creating them inside your own mind. That's the secret to rewiring your mind. You do it before life gives you results. You train yourself to believe, even when there's no evidence. You act like a winner, even while you're losing. You speak life, even in the middle of darkness, because eventually the world reflects the energy you bring to it. You don't get what you want. You get what you expect. And Tony Robbins expected greatness, not because he was arrogant, but because he refused to settle for mediocrity. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you talked yourself out of a dream before you even tried? How many times have you let fear stop you? Let the opinions of others dictate your potential. That's not who you are. That's who you've learned to be. But everything you've learned, you can unlearn. And everything you believe, you can change. That's the power of a rewired mind. It frees you from the prison of your past. Tony Robbins didn't have some magical switch. He had work ethic. He had standards. He refused to let his current reality become his permanent reality. He made a promise to himself that he would never again live below his potential. And from that moment on, he became unstoppable. Not because life got easier, but because he got stronger. You can do the same. You must do the same, because the world needs what's inside you. The pain you've gone through wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to build you, to teach you how to fight. Every scar has a story. Every wound is wisdom. You have more strength in you than you've even begun to tap into. And it starts with a decision. the same kind Tony made. Decide that you will no longer tolerate the old version of you. Decide that you will no longer let your mind be your enemy. Decide that your story isn't over. It's just getting started, and that you're going to write the next chapter with power, with purpose, with passion. Tony often says, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions. But what fuels your decisions, your identity, your standards, your beliefs, and if those things are built on pain, on fear, on doubt, then your job is to tear them down and build new ones. That's what rewiring means. It means identifying the thoughts that keep you small and replacing them with thoughts that make you rise. For Tony, that meant going deep. He confronted the pain of his childhood. He forgave people who didn't deserve it. Not for them, but for himself. He let go of resentment. He released the belief that he wasn't worthy. He let go of the lie that because he came from nothing, he would always be nothing. That's what it takes. You have to tear out the weeds before you can grow the garden. You have to heal the pain before you can build the power. And once you start, the world opens up. Doors appear where walls used to be. Opportunities find you. People are drawn to your energy, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You're raw. You're walking in truth. That's the most magnetic force on earth. A human being who knows who they are and refuses to play small. Tony Robbins became that person, and you can too. What drives him today isn't success. It's impact. He wakes up thinking about the next life he can change, the next breakthrough he can create for someone. That's the ultimate rewiring, when your mind moves beyond your needs and starts focusing on what you can give. Because contribution is the highest level of fulfillment. You can be rich and still be empty. You can be famous and still be hollow. But when you're helping others rise, your spirit stays full. And Tony knows the dream was never about him. It was about legacy, about lighting a path so others could walk it. And millions have, people from every walk of life, people who were suicidal, depressed, hopeless, who came to one of his seminars and left reborn, not because Tony gave them something, but because he awakened something in them. That's what a rewired mind does. It doesn't just change your life. It changes the lives around you. Think about that. Your healing isn't just for you. Your breakthrough isn't just for you. When you rise, you give others permission to rise. When you conquer your limitations, you teach others how to conquer theirs. That's power. That's purpose. And that's exactly what Tony tapped into. Not just for himself, but for the world. But none of it would have happened if he had let his past define him. None of it would have happened if he believed the lies that said, you're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. You're too broken. No. He rewired his mind to say, I am more than my circumstances. I am the creator of my destiny. I will not be stopped. So what's stopping you? The fear, the doubt, the pain, the voice that says, what if I fail? Let me remind you, failure is not the enemy. Comfort is. Staying stuck is. Living in fear is. Playing small is. Tony Robbins wasn't afraid to fail. He was afraid to settle. That's what rewired his mind. That's what rewrote his life. And now it's your turn. You have the same power within you, the same brain, the same choice to become something more than what you've been, to rise above your excuses, to stop living in reaction and start living with intention. You don't need permission. You need a plan. You need a decision, and you need to follow through like your life depends on it, because it does. Build the rituals, build the identity, the belief. Start small, move daily. Change your state, feed your mind, master your emotions, train your body, prime your energy, speak life over yourself until your voice drowns out every doubt. And when it gets hard, because it will, remember this, you're not the only one who's felt pain. You're not the only one who's been doubted, betrayed, abandoned, overlooked. But if Tony Robbins could take that pain and build a purpose out of it, so can you. If he could turn rock bottom into a launch pad, so can you. If he could rewire his mind and change his world, then what are you waiting for? Stop waiting. Start moving. Start deciding, becoming. Because the life you want is not in the distance. It's waiting behind the thoughts you refuse to change. The moment you shift your thinking, you shift your life. The moment you claim your power, your path begins to clear. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be committed. So commit right now. Say it out loud. I will rewire my mind. I will rise. I will not be defined by my past. I will become who I was born to be. And when doubt creeps in, when the old thoughts try to pull you back, smile, because you're no longer that person. You've stepped into a new story. You've stepped into your power. You've stepped into the journey that changed Tony Robbins' life and will now change yours, because greatness is not for the chosen few. It's for the committed. And if you're still listening, still breathing, still believing, then you've already begun.